So Maddie believes that men are hardwired to see beauty in women who are most likely able to produce children for them. First, if that was true, then wide hips and large breasts would be the norm for all of millennia. And sure, for some of history, like the Minoans, that was a big deal. But then the ancient Romans, for example, wouldn't see small breasts and athletic women as attractive. And we wouldn't have the situation where body types come in and out of fashion. Take, for example, Charles II, who had a very specific body type: small breasts, large hips, round face, and all of these women, because these are different women, were his mistresses. A totally different beauty standard happened when his successor liked a different body type. And let's talk about faces. This has nothing to do with birthing children. Yet, for millennia, men have discussed what is attractive in women's faces. And for example, in the Renaissance, clear, unblemished skin and high foreheads were fashionable. None of those beauty standards have anything to do with being able to birth children. Seeing slim as attractive and healthy is very new in human history. It only comes after the Industrial Revolution, when we have enough access to food and medical care. Before, it was seen as sickly. So Maddie, maybe it's not that you're hardwired to see beauty only in those women who you perceive as being able to give you babies, but instead that the women are hardwired to see you are a jerk and don't want to have babies with you. Actually, these are all manipulation. They're all about a facade that men are putting on. So how did so many people get tricked by Kevin? I think it's because many people were not attuned to the pretty complex ways men choose to depict themselves, and so they were tricked. So I've chosen to behead this painting. He beheaded a lot of people. But I did it because even without the head, you know that this is a person who is a leader because he's standing in a very powerful posture. Hands on his hips, broad shoulders, feet evenly placed. I think it's interesting. He does not have to be muscular to be powerful, because for men, it doesn't matter necessarily how much of their physical body is powerful as long as they have power in some venue. And of course, that's Henry VIII, so he was in charge of a whole country. But men display this kind of power even if they don't have a whole country to rule. Now, when you see one of those powerful people, you might be on guard. You know what to expect. When you see somebody who's attractive, we also have a little bit of a what does he want? You know, we're not expecting him to be a lamb. That's why so many romance novels have a guy who's handsome and turns out to be nice. It is a surprise because the visuals of attractiveness imply that he can get away with more and might do it. So what does this have to do with Kevin? Kevin knew that we would have seen that he was not conventionally attractive. He wasn't standing in a power pose, and so we put him into the visual nice guy category. He had this posture that was relaxed, like him. He sort of was a nerd, the sensitive soul, right? Like him. He almost seemed like he wasn't gonna hurt us. He was the gentle soul of a poet. He was relaxed in all of his images. He never stood up really straight. He often leaned in a little. He made it so he seemed like he couldn't possibly hurt us. He's not going to use his power against us. And like this figure, he's at ease, he's with the roses, you know, this is like sort of the quintessential nice guy, basically the Renaissance Kevin. He is projecting something. And because our cues are to see this as somebody who wouldn't hurt us, unlike the first couple images I showed, we get tricked. Now, maybe this guy was nice, but Kevin knew that we would put him into this category, nice guy, and he knew that he could exploit it. Is beauty in the eye of the beholder? In some ways, it's not. Beauty is socially constructed. So what people perceive as beautiful is based in the society they are in. And here is a good test. If you live in America now, tell me, do people think thin or fat is more beautiful? I didn't say, do you think? I said, do people think? And that is a difference. Society, we use people to stand in for society. It's like when you say they, that's society. In American society, thin, tall, blue-eyed, and blonde is often more beautiful. So of the 7 women on the screen right now, which one of them does not qualify as the American standard of beauty? So, is somebody who deviates from the highest standard of beauty in a society ugly? No. And that's the important thing. It is not that somebody who looks different than what society deems is attractive is ugly. It is that they are not the pinnacle of beauty. And I think there's like plenty of examples in our own society. Those are all gorgeous women who've had success in Hollywood who do not conform to the societal norms. So when you're talking about big picture concepts like beauty and what is a societal appeal, it would be that blonde woman for us. Does that make me or any of these women ugly? Hell, those women are definitely not ugly. Why are small noses a beauty norm? You guessed it, racism, patriarchy, and capitalism. So why do we have such a variety of noses in the first place? It's an adaptation to the variety of climates our ancient ancestors had. And small noses were particularly useful if you were from a very cold environment. Think about breathing in all that cold air. And as with everything in humanity, once you have variety, we created hierarchies. But interestingly enough, the aesthetic of what was the best nose was very different over time and across the world. For women in Europe, for example, beauty often meant you looked very young. And so that meant having large eyes, but a small nose made you look even younger. And the surgical world, starting in 1887, was able to ensure that people could have these tiny little button noses. But it's not just women who got rhinoplasties, men as well. And oftentimes these surgeries took away ethnic features. It allowed people to pass from whatever ethnic origin they had to being generally white. And why was the small nose the general white feature? When many people who are ethnically European had large noses. You can thank mass media. Both film and magazines showed women in the 20th century who were so modern and elegant and had a very specific tiny nose. One that was particularly common amongst people who were ethnically Northern European. The tiny nose was cemented as the ideal of beauty because that aesthetic was pushed by media. It started impacting cultures around the world. And in capitalism, any chink in our esteem is quickly exploited, hence the crazy makeup industry about contouring our noses and the enormous rhinoplasty industry. Which is why I love it when people embrace their